All right, so we drop in. We're at the launch ramp. This is a great little flat calm bay right now, and this time of year they're planting trout out here. So if you just sit out here for 5 or 10 minutes, you'll see trout, little small planted trout, jumping all over the place. Some of those trout are eating bugs. Some of the trout are jumping out of the water because they're being chased by bass or bigger trout. But they're in here. There's a ton of fish in here. So, if you're in a float tube, if you're walking the bank, this is a great spot to come down to. It's really easy to fish. You don't have to go that far. Come down in the mornings, the water's flat. But, so anyways, we show up, and I think two things when I'm trying to fish something like this. Either fishing some sort of small trout pattern, and again, that same small clouser works for that, in trying to catch, predatory bass, or fishing small leeches and trying to catch those trout. We're gonna start off with this sinking line because I like fishing it mostly, and I wanna do a quick little demonstration of how to cast this stuff. So, you always wanna have a little bit of that fly line out. This is weighted, so if it gets back in your eyes, it's going to sink all the way down the eyes. So you always wanna have 2 or 3 feet of that fly line working out at the end of your eyes. So once you're in the water, I'll get a little bit out. One thing I always do, this line is always sinking. And people, when they learn how to cast this, try to cast it like a floating line. They jerk it out of the water, and it's 5, 6 feet down, and you can't just pull it out of the water. So I try to create a routine when I cast. Do it the same way every single time. And what that usually ends up being is one roll cast out and then immediately into my casting. So when I'm done stripping, when I come back in, I want to stop with a couple of feet left out of that fly line, left out of the eyes. I'll do a slow hanging pull up until I can see that fly. And then I'll roll cast it back out and immediately go into my casting. One other little point, and I'll try to cast off the front of the boat. I try to make 3 false casts, and I water load on the front cast with this sinking line. So it ends up being a roll cast. I let that water actually hit, or that line hit the water on the way down, like that. And when I'm ready to cast, I'll try to shoot that 3 times. So I strip my line up, I get done with the drift, I'll do a little hang, I'll roll cast that out, water load it and shoot some line. 1, 2, 3. And that's usually how I'm casting every time. Try to do that the same way every single time, and you'll see a big improvement in your casting. I'll strip this back, always running the line through my finger. And you'll notice when you get into this that dry line will burn your finger pretty easily. So I always like getting into the wet line or do a couple loose strips when it's dry. When I feel that water on the line, it really starts ripping through my finger, I'll start getting after it. So again, fish it all the way up. You'll notice that the head is black on this. So once you start pulling black line in, you know that fly is almost to the boat. So that's when you start paying attention. I got about 3 or 4 feet of line out, roll cast it, water load, cast it. Let's talk about the stripping pattern real quick. With bass, you want it to be really erratic. You're trying to mimic a wounded bait fish here, and that's not going to swim real consistent with trout strips. You want to vary it up. Lots of big pauses, just like a jerk bait, just like, I guess I shouldn't use bass fishing analogies for a fly fishing tutorial, but just like a wounded bait fish or a wounded minnow or something in the water that's not doing so great. The fish are going to key in on an atypical chunk of bait, something in distress, more than they're going to key in on something that's, moving around like it should be. I'll hang it, roll cast, water load it, send it. A couple other notes. It's really, really challenging to manage your line around your feet. just always a constant challenge. The line's gonna knot up, it's gonna tangle up, you're gonna step on it. That's just the way it goes. The more you fish, the more you'll learn to work around your line. A stripping bucket really helps for this. There's some great ones out there. An old laundry basket, you know, an old trash can, anything that you can put beside you and strip your line into always helps. Or just keep a nice clear area where you're casting. Other than that, we'll get back into the river and start talking about some more tactics here.